Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. For the next half hour, we are going to be talking about baked goods, desserts, and other foods that reflect the environment and cultures from around the world with my guests, Adaeze, Nwanonyiri, and Lenny Rosenberg. They are owners of New York Bagel Deli and Bakery in Santa Monica, California, as well as Bee's Bakery in Tarzana, California. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Appreciate you having us.
Thank you so much.
We are here eating some delicious items from your bakery and from your new cookbook. It's a Sweet World, recipes from around the globe at Bee's Bakery. Not only do I see and taste delicious items here, but in your book you have incredible, gorgeous pictures of so many different kinds of baked goods, from cakes, breads, cookies, pies, puddings, many other kinds of items. You have recipes, but what I enjoyed so much, as well as eating what you provide, was reading about their history, the history of the different items. And I'd like to begin first with how you two met, because when you got married, you had to go take a nut or something to her father.
It was very nutty, actually. Extremely nutty. As my wife always said, it was a bright and sunny day when we met. Actually, that's a joke. She always says it's a dark and stormy night. But in all honesty, we met in Malibu about 15 years ago. Had a spark of interest between the two of us to work together, and then a spark of interest to get together in a relationship. And the rest is history. We've been buying and selling bakeries and got married and live happily ever after.
You come from a tradition in New York of your father having a New York style deli and bakery, but you come from a family that came from Nigeria.
Correct. They're from Nigeria, the Igbo tribe, which is a very aristocratic tribe, and we do have a lot of rituals and symbols that's associated with being a part of a tribe. So there is a kola nut involved, and that's a fruit that's grown in the tropical rainforest of Nigeria. So with that fruit, there's heavy currency behind it due to the symbolism and the goodwill, positive, good chapter, and good omen that's presented behind it. So it's a big deal to have that nut in your life, whether you consume it or you can do trade-offs for currency to increase your monetary value.
Food definitely has a value. Lenny, with your history of the New York style deli, what is the most popular dish, and was it from America or from the Ashkenazi group of Jews in Europe?
My background is actually formerly as a baker. My father was a baker. My father was from Hungary, so a lot of our recipes are European. But probably the most prominent one, it's a delicacy that all Jewish bakeries have, and that's rugala. Chocolate or cinnamon, but most popular is chocolate. As far as the deli business, probably the most popular item that we made, the top two, was matzo brie and chicken noodle soup.
You mentioned chocolate, and I know that I've been tasting some wonderful baked goods that have chocolate. But we think of chocolate from places like Switzerland, but they don't grow chocolate there. It's really from the Americas. So tell us about this movement of foods from one continent to another and how they all got mixed up.
As you know, America is an eclectic mixture of cultures, kind of like the melting pot of New York City. And everybody and their aunt, especially now, has, whether it's a cooking show or a new pop-up restaurant or all these different type of eclectic bakeries and bagel shops and delis for that matter. Food is, in America, has morphed over the years trying to simulate what's going on in other countries where food was generally a lot better than America. And so we're just trying to catch up with places like Europe and Italy and Spain and France where the food is phenomenal.
I found it interesting that the egg roll, which I think of as Asian, fusion. In your book, you have a Nigerian egg roll?
We do have a Nigerian egg roll. It plays a big part in the Nigerian culture, kind of like a street fair type of food, and also a kind of food where you can have for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. If you don't have enough money, you can just pack that in your bag and pop it in your mouth. And that's what my mom did a lot in Port Harcourt from Anambra State. So her mom would just pack the Nigerian egg rolls, and that created a lot of memories, and also a lot of Asians caught on to that as well. So there was multiple utilizations for that Nigerian egg roll, and it's very tasty, and you can kind of make it your own thing. You can add honey to it or even like cayenne pepper, so the choice is yours, but it's cheap, it's fast, effective, and you're always going to smile.
America is a melting pot of people from all over the world, and that means food from all over the world. Even though I'm sitting in what is considered one of the best New York style delis here in Southern California, you have a recipe and serve an item from the Philippines with ube, a purple yam, and it can go in a lot of different kinds of items.
Correct. It's ube. It originates from the Manila, Philippines in the rainforest. You can make it sweet. You can make it tasty. That was used as currency as well in the agricultural site of Palawan, and it's very attractive. The colors make people get excited and hungry. And if you're in the mood for soup, you can make a ube soup. If you want to make ube cookies, you can do that. We also have like an infamous ube challah, which is featured in our book. And also, it's very, very beneficial health-wise. It has a high fiber quantity, which helps like your digestive health. It's very well-versed in vitamin A, B, and B6. And also it's a part of the ecosystem, kind of for better, for worse. So with the ecosystem, due to its aggressive growth, it does have the potential to harm like animals that feed off the plants. But it did transfer to America, and it's not showing any signs of slowing down.
Do you ever go into a grocery store and look at some new food, some new plants, vegetables, fruits, and say, let's see what we can do with that? We haven't made anything from it. What have you discovered?
Absolutely. Every time we go to a store, a multicultural store, we're always inspired to think of something new to make everyone feel like they're home, away from home. So like the kola nut that we were talking about, you can find that in a Nigerian bodega in certain parts around the world. And with that kola nut, it symbolizes goodwill, good fortune. And it's a very popular West African fruit to bring to the possible engagement of the father's daughter. So that's exactly what Lenny had to do. He had to find the kola nut in a Nigerian bodega, and then from there you present that to the father, upcoming bride, and you ask for a blessing, and then he does a prayer, and when he does the prayer, that means that the marriage is valid, or the upcoming marriage is valid, or even like a friendship is valid. It's just like a welcoming and a good omen.
Food seemed to reflect the cultures and the environment because of what is grown and what foods can be used in making a product. We think of the United Kingdom, Scotland, England, scones, muffins. Are they different when you make them here in America versus how you make them over there?
Well, traditionally in America, we make what's called a buttermilk scone, which is much different than the English scone that they make over in England. Buttermilk scone is what it sounds like. It's made with buttermilk. It's more sweet. It's got more sugar in it. It's more savory, whereas the English scone is a little bit more tough. It's harder, a little bit more dense, and obviously less sweet than what we make over here.
Here in America, we think of an expression as American as apple pie, but the apples in America aren't the ones used in the pies. Those are apples that have been introduced to the United States?
Most people don't know this, but it was back in the 15th century. Apples actually came from Asia, and they were introduced to the North Americas during the days of Columbus, I believe. That's when they started making what was called an apple coffin, where they would cook the apples in a box and throw away the shell. Nowadays, it's called an apple pie, where we're making it in a pie tin. I guess over the years, it was transmitted to making it more traditional for a table setting, where you can make an even cut pie and looks nicer on the table and whatnot than a coffin.
Breads are traditionally reflective of particular areas of the world, particular cultures. Indian food, you think of naan bread. You think of matzah for Passover Seders. You think of challah bread every Sabbath with for the Jewish services and meals. How many kinds of breads are there?
There's probably thousands of different types of breads and rolls and obviously bagels. Bread, it's got a lot of culture and enormous varieties, especially in America now, where everybody and their aunt is opening up a bread shop with these specialty breads. There's a lot of good shops out here now. Obviously, overseas, especially in places like France, they supposedly make the best breads, but we're coming pretty close at this point. A lot of people from other countries, other cultures are coming here to make the breads, but there is an enormous varieties out here, which I love to go to different shops and see the new shops and the new breads that are coming up. And one of the most popular ones today is sourdough base because it's easier on, a lot of people have celiac disease or some sort of aversion to gluten, but the sourdough base is as close as you can get to gluten-free, but still is a traditional bread. It has an incredible taste. It's actually pretty healthy for you.
I think of sourdough as traditionally California. San Francisco, the gold miners had that sourdough starter, but maybe it started someplace else?
That's a good question. That part I don't know 100% where it actually started. But traditionally, everyone knows the sourdough bread from San Francisco. In all honesty, it's all the same. The sourdough base, it's the actual bread that ferments. A real traditional sourdough is a culture that you've kept for decades and just keep reusing the same base in the bread over and over and over again. It makes the bread even better each time. So every time you finish mixing the bread, you take a piece of the dough, you throw it in a bucket, and you leave it for the next time you make the bread.
That is true ecological reuse, to keep that base and use it year after year after year. But you mentioned gluten-free, and what's so special about all the recipes in your book, It's a Sweet World, Recipes from Around the Globe at Bee's Bakery, is the fact that you also show how you can have gluten-free options.
Yeah, we have a bunch of gluten-free options. As a matter of fact, we always make a gluten-free menu with whatever bakery we have. Actually, in our new shop, New York Bagel and Deli and Bakery, we make gluten-free bagels now. It's not as hard as you think to make gluten-free. Most of the purveyors in the markets carry some really high-end gluten-free flours, and I like using only the best. And there's a brand called Bob's Mill, which makes all different types of gluten-free products, including a really high-end whole grain gluten-free flour, which we use in our gluten-free bagels. We also use buckwheat flour, which is really healthy, really high in protein, and gluten-free, of course.
Naturally, when we're enjoying these wonderful baked goods, whether or not they're cookies, pies, puddings, cakes, scones, breads, people want to add some other items and they want something to drink. Are there any special stories about the various teas and coffees that you share at your restaurants about what people should combine with what food, what baked items?
Traditionally, we always have a few different blends of our favorite coffees, like the vanilla nut, which goes really well with a lot of our pastries, specifically the chocolate rugelach, one of our specialty pairings to the customers, because obviously you got the sweet blend of the coffee, which obviously doesn't have any sugar in it, and it goes great with something like a chocolate rugelach, which obviously has the sweet taste to it, and it kind of blends together really nice.
For people who haven't had a rugelach, describe it.
The rugelach is made of cream cheese and butter. It's very rich in flavor. It just melts in your mouth.
I tasted your hot chocolate, but not just the ordinary hot chocolate. The Mexican hot chocolate had a little bit more chocolate than normal, and of course chocolate was originally from Mexico.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we brought it in, because as you know, California, it's indigenous to Hispanic workers, and we wanted to bring something here that the Hispanics would know and love. The Mexican hot chocolate is very rich in cocoa. It's got a much higher cocoa content than most of the other cocos in America, and that's one of the reasons we brought it in, and it goes great with all our products here.
And while a lot of people advocate vegetarianism and veganism, you still provide some fish and meat dishes. The very traditional bagel with lox and cream cheese. That's a very popular item?
Oh yeah, that's probably the biggest selling food, lunch related or breakfast related item that we have here. Very traditional in any deli, especially any New York deli, is lox and cream cheese or even whitefish and cream cheese. But here, lox and cream cheese is the most popular.
And what would be the Nigerian edition as the very popular bagel and cream chease? What would they have in place of that in Nigeria?
Nigerian egg roll, 2-in-1. You get your protein with the eggs. You get the breading that's protecting the egg, and that's pretty much equivalent to it. You eat one, you are good to go for the next few hours. It's like the human fuel that makes you smile.
We're going to take a short break while I go grab some more delicious items from the New York Bagel Deli and Bakery. When we return, we'll continue our discussion of foods and the environment and cultures with Adaeze, Nwanonyiri, and Lenny Rosenberg.
Environmental Directions with Nancy Perlman continues with further discussion of the world's critical ecological issues. For more information, you may call 310-559-9160 or go to www.ecoprojects.org. Now, here's Nancy.
I'm speaking with Adaeze, Nwanonyiri, and Lenny Rosenberg, who are owners of New York Bagel Deli and Bakery in Santa Monica and Bee's Bakery in Tarzana, here in Southern California, and authors of It's a Sweet World, Recipes from Around the Globe at Bee's Bakery. Perhaps you ought to tell us about how famous Bee's Bakery is.
Bee's Bakery has been an institution in the Valley in Los Angeles for the past 50 years. It was built in 1968 by Bee and her husband, and their son Jules took it over about 20 years after it was built. He carried on the tradition till COVID hit, and at that time, me and my wife came in because Jules was ready to retire, and we bought the place from him, and he felt we were a good fit to carry on the traditions. We took it over, kept it the same way, but just added our own multicultural recipes to make it a full bakery with not just Jewish items, but other pastries from around the globe.
I was enjoying reading about the history of some of the foods that I grew up with, cookies and pies, pumpkin pie, traditional in the fall because pumpkins are an American fruit. And you also have many different kinds of cookies. Tell me more about the various ingredients of these American dishes.
With the American dishes, I honestly am so grateful to have Lenny as the guru of all of that. I know we use a lot of all-purpose flour, whole flour, regular sugar, granulated sugar, and also honey and eggs. Lenny is an expert of utilizing all of these ingredients, and every single dessert comes out different.
I look at the pictures and I taste the food, and it's all different. And yet I look at the recipes, and I'm not a cook or a baker, and I don't know how they come out all different because so many of the ingredients are flour and sugar and butter. Explain how you make them different.
Well, I mean, obviously there are different amounts and somewhat different ingredients in each recipe, but a lot of them carry the same type of products, which is normal in any bakery. The best way I can explain it is that it's sort of like when you walk over to a pond and you throw a pebble in the pond and it makes a ripple, as opposed to not throwing the pebble and there will be no ripple. There's two different outcomes. And to explain it, I would just say that no two items that get mixed a little bit differently and a little bit different variation will come out the same. You can mix the same exact ingredients with just a little bit of difference, and you'd be surprised how much of a different product you'll make, especially different temperature you bake it at or different formation. There's a lot of different recipes out there that I've made that just by accident you can create a new dish if you don't put the right amount of ingredients in.
I'm certainly enjoying everything that I'm tasting, but I mentioned before, when you go to the store, you see other kinds of items that you can experiment with. And I'm looking here, for example, the French are very famous for their fresh fruit tarts. But I would assume that some of the fruit can be different depending on what country you're in, what environment you happen to be in, what fruits are seasonal, what is available.
Correct. That plays a big factor into everything. The season, how much rain is that crop or the tropical rainforest receiving, and also the sun. Is it a lot of sun? Is it a harsh winter? So that is predicated on how that will come to the United States. It's also predicated on how the products will end up in the long term.
My mother grew up in West Virginia and love to make the cornbread. But in your book, you have a Nigerian cornbread. So it seems as though different cultures take a similar fruit or vegetable and are able to make similar dishes with variations.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. It comes down to survival. So like you mentioned, cornbread, we do have an infamous Nigerian cornbread, but it started off with the Native Americans because they needed a form of nutrition and food and survival. It's also similar to breads, right? That is what gave people nourishment and vitamins, and similar to our Irish soda bread that's featured in the book as well. That was very helpful during the Irish famine. So it all comes down to survival, and after survival, the creativity aspect of it as well.
We're here near the beach in Southern California, near Los Angeles, and yet you call your place a New York bagel deli and bakery. Why New York? What's so special about the deli food there? Because I know you have some of the Jewish food, the kugel and other dishes, very common in New York.
Well, New York is traditional for the best deli food, best bagels, best bakeries. It's just well known. We've bannered this store for the last 40 years with New York because the original owner was actually from New York. He developed the bagel recipes that we use here in New York. And of course, a lot of our bakery recipes are from New York. So traditionally, just in general, when you hear the words New York Deli or New York Bagel Deli, or in our case, New York Bagel Deli and Bakery, it's synonymous with great deli food.
And also, the New York name really meant a lot to the both of us because Lenny's a New Yorker. I lived in New York for some time going to school. And the beautiful thing is that anytime someone comes here to New York, our store, they feel like they're at home. It takes them back to the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, Long Island. We hear all these stories, and we take pride in standing out as like a East Coast style type of bakery. So it's kind of like where a little bit of East hits the West Coast. Of course, we want to keep that tradition going.
Food definitely makes one feel at home. We love going home to the family home-cooked meals, the traditional foods that we ate, but you have recipes from many other countries, from Italy to Australia. You could have chosen so many. How many are in this book? And how did you decide which places to do? I assume you tested all of these out and sold them in your store to see which was popular and which you might not want to write about.
That's an amazing question, and definitely we have 60 recipes, and we did a lot of trial and error testing, but most importantly, it comes down to the customers. We have a multicultural customer fan base that we hear stories about our Ukrainian customers, our Chinese customers, Nigerian customers, Ukrainian, Russian, Jewish. They tell us these stories that reminds them of home, reminds them of their grandma, their aunt, their niece, and their bubby. When they tell us these stories, it relates back to the food that they had, so we definitely recreate it. We do a lot of trial and error.
I enjoyed reading the stories. You both have a knack of not just cooking great baked goods, but you have a knack of writing wonderful stories about them. I didn't realize that the American oatmeal raisin cookie was developed in 1896 by a Boston cook named Fanny Merritt Farmer. And you talk about the Fanny Farmer cookbook. You give this kind of history. You went into discovering a lot about these foods that you bake and serve. What stories moved you?
The best stories that moved me was actually my family's stories. The tradition that my father would bring home a challah every Friday night from the bakery where he'd make himself. We would do a Jewish blessing at the dinner table, and it was just something we all look forward to on Friday night.
I know that you enjoyed sharing your Nigerian heritage and had lots of stories there, but when you were researching these other baked goods, what stories did you find unusual, different, unexpected?
Oh, wow. A lot of them were really unusual, in a good way, unexpected. I really enjoyed getting to know more about like the rainbow cookies. An Italian baker started off that trend, and then it actually gradually spread with the Jewish community, and that was a big deal for Shabbat. And the colors are so fun and festive, and it gets you excited, and it exudes happiness, and with happiness, you want to share that energy with other people. And something that was really a learning experience for me is learning that the rainbow cookies, they're very respected in lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer community. And that's a big deal because that makes them feel recognized. So it's making everyone happy in different groups and cultures and nationalities.
Do most of these baked goods use cultivated items? I would assume flour, sugar. is grown in a commercial way, or have you experimented with some of the wild foods? Because I know each local environment throughout the world has plants that people make special dishes from.
For the most part, in most commercial bakeries like ours, most of the ingredients are sourced commercially because you're buying it from big purveyors. But what I like about owning a mom and pop shop, which is what we've always had, is that we have the ability to go out to the local farmers market and find eclectic, very high-end, very high in sustainability ingredients that are very healthy for you.
When you wrote It's a Sweet World, Recipes from Around the Globe at Bee's Bakery, how did you decide what 60 items you were going to include? And did you have to not include one? Are we going to see a sequel?
That's great. Anything's possible. We were inspired by the different countries. I wanted to share with the world what a kola nut meant from my Nigerian culture, what a Nigerian egg roll was.
And in the stories about the various items, you did a lot of research. It took a lot of time. How long did it take to put together? Which item did you find most difficult to describe and to explain or to bake, and which was the easiest?
It took a very long time. This was about a 3-year project of ours because we wanted to get it right. There was no item that was less or more difficult. All these items, I can do them blindfolded pretty much, whether I was creating them from scratch or they're just regular items that we sell in the store. They're what we call labor of love, where they're easy to make because you enjoy doing them.
Do you worry about the toxicity of colored dyes? Because I noticed some of these have different colors.
Yeah, that's something that has come up recently about the colored dyes. We're not using the toxicity of these dyes that they are talking about at the news, but any dye that you're using is not the greatest thing to ingest.
I love the pictures, very colorful, easy to read, easy to understand, great short stories. Share a couple of more with us. Nigeria has the green and white cookies. Aren't those part of the colors of Nigeria?
You are absolutely right on. It's the color of the Nigerian flag, green and white, and it's a very, very popular cookie for October 1st is Nigerian Independence Day. So you will see people munching on green and whites, and it's also very popular because cassava yams, that's grown in Nigeria, and we're proud of the cassava yams because they're known for the high fertility rates that they give the Central African women to have twins. So we puree a lot of cassava yams in these cookies, so it tricks your body to produce more estrogen. So that is where the twins come from. And if you don't believe me, you can ask my mom. She's a fraternal twin. You can ask my brother. He has twins. I have twin nephews. And my sister, she has twins, fraternal twins. And my uncle has twins. So they all ate cassava yams. My mom ate cassava yams. My sister ate cassava yams, and that's part of the green and whites. And it's just a fun cookie. It tastes great. And if you're a mother or if you want to have kids and you're looking for twins, get to know more about the green and whites.
You certainly believe the value of green and white and those yams. Your family, Lenny, came from Hungary. Did they share stories of the food, the ingredients, the environment that influenced their baked goods?
Yeah, my father talked about his mother all the time, who was a baker, and that's what inspired my father to be a baker. And a lot of his recipes that he brought to America that he made in his bakery was his mother's recipes, and one in particular was the challah bread.
For people who don't know what the challah bread is, explain it, because it's a delicious bread. It's not a flat bread. It always has some shapes.
The challah bread is more like a dessert for most people. It's sweeter than most breads. It's made as a braid. A 6-braided challah is very traditional, so it's not the easiest thing to braid, but once you get the knack of it, it's pretty easy. It's made with eggs, which gives it a great flavor and texture. As I said, it's much sweeter than any other bread, so it's almost like eating a cake.
I'm so thankful that you have shared these delicious foods, recipes, stories about the food, shared the product here in your New York Bagel Deli and Bakery in Santa Monica and Bee's Bakery in Tarzana. It's really wonderful to learn more about what we eat and where it came from and why it was developed. And I want to thank you so very much for sharing with us your experiences, your stories, your heritage. Thank you for being my guest.
Oh, appreciate you having us.
Thanks a lot.
I have been speaking with Adaeze, Nwanonyiri, and Lenny Rosenberg. They are authors of It's a Sweet World, recipes from around the globe at Bee's Bakery. I'm Nancy Pearlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Pearlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.